nearly 45 minutes behind schedule. And from there, Trump launched into his normal talking points and grievances and attacks on Kamala Harris.
What are you talking about?
They're doing it right now while this third-rate phony candidate. Don't forget, I beat Biden. He failed in the debate miserably. We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden. No tax on tips, and all of a sudden she's making a speech and there will be no tax on tips. I said that months ago. All of a sudden, for politics, she says, she comes out with what I said, which I think is terrible, and I think it's also hitting them very hard. These people are fake. Kamala wouldn't have this conversation. She can't because she's not smart. She's not a smart person, by the way.
It was kind of a big moment, not just for Donald Trump, but also for Elon Musk.
For sure.
On Twitter, as I still call it.
This is why I love good old-fashioned television. It just works,
Well, don't curse
everything
us.
actually works. This actually does
Why does she
show
still
that
call it,
streaming can struggle, especially
Twitter?
when someone like Musk fired most of the technical staffers at the company formerly known as Twitter. He kind of had this coming. Musk says he had been testing the servers ahead of time, trying to make sure this would work. We'll find out later what actually went wrong here. But it is embarrassing for Trump because every day he's been attempting a reset lately to try to take on Harris.
Yeah, and I mean, this is truly what he made fun of Ron DeSantis for, which, as you would know well, I mean, it's kind of perfectly timed that you're here. But I was looking at what Trump said when this happened to Ron DeSantis. He said, wow, the DeSantis Twitter launch is a disaster. His whole campaign will be a disaster. I mean, can you hear the laughs from the governor's mansion in Florida tonight?
I don't remember any of that, Caitlin. Look, I mean, obviously, I'm sure everybody involved wished it went better tonight. But I think this is a symptom of a larger issue right now, which is, for the first time in his adult political career, Donald Trump's struggling to get earned media attention. And we have not seen that. There have been days, but since 2015, they've been days and hours, not weeks on end. And so I think that's what you're seeing him reach out, doing press conferences, going to, journalist panels, and now doing events like this, because he is looking for ways to reach people and frankly have us here tonight talking, even if it's a bad Twitter event or a delayed one, it's better than a night of Kamala Harris is on the rise and succeeding. Well, that's what he has to do.
And her campaign is on Truth Social, reposting Trump's truths about his interview. I mean, they're like really trying to troll him with this moment here.
It's so crazy that these people actually think that Kamala Harris, there's no way they think this, right? That Kamala Harris is actually succeeding and doing well. I mean, I don't know, dude, there's no way that you can actually say that with a straight face, and they do it all the time.
They are trolling him. I mean, here's the thing, too. Trump is still running a playbook that is quite old and stale, frankly, in this political environment, trying to go after earned media as if it's the be-all, end-all, as opposed to actually campaigning. Kamala Harris has been...
The classic blue-haired, except it's not blue. This haircut, man, it's what they always look like this.
Making waves through really critical swing states and actually on the ground, gathering crowds, talking to people, building up the base of the Democratic Party who's going to come out and vote for her. Donald Trump is sitting at Mar-a-Lago most of the time and sitting on X or Truth Social or wherever spouting nasties as opposed to going out and trying to reach people. And if he thinks that earned media is the only way to get votes, he's going to have a real reckoning, because Kamala Harris is actually going to win through the culture and going directly to the people.
Well, and I think...
What are you talking about? Kamala Harris...
When you look at what his strategy is, and instead I'm curious what you're hearing from sources, I mean, Trump was back on Twitter today. He has not been on Twitter since he was banned. Musk obviously bought the website, reinstated him. He posted his mugshot when he was indicted in Georgia last year. But until then, he had not been posting until today, really trying to hype this conversation and to take back the headlines.
I think it's indicative of a campaign that continues to try to search these moments to flip the narrative. Donald Trump is returning to Twitter, not because that's the biggest audience in the world, but he knows media is there. He knows a lot of newsmakers and decision makers. It functions as a water cooler of sorts. And he wants to get his name back into the conversation. But to your point, the problem for Donald Trump is he's basically been chilling for a year or so, right? He hasn't been on the campaign trail in a big way. The legal problems kind of hid some of that. And most importantly,
Trump hasn't been on the campaign, but Kamala has not done an interview in the past 2 months.
Opponent who was not doing much of that campaigning itself. The second that changed. This campaign has been exposed for one that does not have the kind of offensive ability that I think some people thought they did. I mean, I think we looked at a race for the last year and a half that was stale, and it kind of presented Donald Trump as maybe a more imposing political figure than he was, but he continues to be at the same vote share he was a month ago, even before the RNC, even before the assassination attempts. That's indicative of a campaign that has reached a ceiling of voters and needs to try new things to win people over. And so far, it's not that they're not trying it, it's that it's not working.
Elon Musk billed it as the interview of the century. Donald Trump broke his long silence on X to promote it, but their conversation on Musk's platform was plagued with technical problems that are overshadowing the interview itself, at least parts of it. At the scheduled start time, many people could not connect to the feed where it was happening. Musk claims a denial of service attack, as it's known, overwhelmed the company's servers, but it's unclear if that was the issue or if too many people were trying to get into the room. The interview eventually got underway, nearly 45 minutes behind schedule, and from there, Trump launched into his normal talking points and grievances and attacks on Kamala Harris.
They're doing it right now while this third-rate phony candidate. Don't forget, I beat Biden. He failed in the debate miserably. We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden. No tax on tips, and all of a sudden she's making a speech and there will be no tax on tips. I said that months ago. All of a sudden, for politics, she says, you know, she comes out with what I said, which I think is terrible, and I think it's also hitting them very hard. These people are fake. Kamala wouldn't have this conversation. She can't because she's not smart. You know, she's not a smart person, by the way.
The glitchy conversation was not just a misfire for Trump. He was hoping to use the opportunity to blunt Kamala Harris's momentum. It's also a big embarrassment for Elon Musk because this has happened before during the botched launch of Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign. It's unclear if this will impact Trump and Musk's relationship, which has gotten increasingly closer over the past few months since Musk took over what used to be known as Twitter. The billionaire has used the platform as his personal megaphone, expressing increasingly far-right views aligned with Trump. You remember Musk endorsed Donald Trump after the assassination attempt against him, and there's new reporting tonight that shows just how far Musk has ventured into politics. The Wall Street Journal says his super PAC wants to turn out 800,000 voters for Trump in battleground states. We will dig into that later on tonight. And if you want just a sense of just how much their bromance has grown, all you have to do is track Trump's evolving comments on electric cars.
The cars go for like two hours. What are you going to do? Everyone's going to be sitting on the highway. We're all going to be looking for a little plug-in. Why is it that these big, powerful car companies with guys that are making $35 million a year immediately quit? They say, you want electric vehicles, we'll give it to you, when the damn things don't go far enough and they're too expensive. I'm for electric cars. I have to be, you know, because Elon endorsed me very strongly, Elon. So I have no choice.
You have a good, and you do make a great product, I have to say. I have to be honest with you.
Thank
That
you.
doesn't mean everybody should have an electric car, but these are minor details. But your product is incredible.
All right, now he's on board with electric cars. Okay, joining me now, CNN media analyst and Axios senior media reporter Sarah Fisher, former Trump 2020 Director of Strategic Communications Mark Lotter, and former Democratic Congressman and 2020 presidential candidate Tim Ryan. Guys, thanks very much for being with us. Sarah, let me start with you first. This is a bit in your wheelhouse. Elon Musk is claiming that there was some sort of technical problem at the beginning of this. What do we know?
And now you have reports out from The Verge, a tech media company, saying that sources said it's not actually a DDoS, a denial of service attack. It was just that the systems were overwhelmed. You know, it's hard. X has become a black box in terms of communication. What Elon Musk says oftentimes is what goes. But oftentimes these things can look very similar, Jim. A DDoS attack is overwhelming a system to shut it down. It could have very well been that a lot of people wanted to listen to this interview, which overwhelmed the system and shut it down. Either way, as you mentioned at the top of your remarks, it's an embarrassment for Musk. They're trying to make this the video platform of choice, but they can't get a live stream up and running. Yeah,
he said it was going to be the greatest piece of entertainment or whatever, you know, before this thing got started. That is certainly not what it was. And Mark, the first 20 minutes of the interview was on the assassination attempt. And then we moved on into other areas. We're going to talk about some of those areas that he got into. Do you really want Donald Trump to be off script, sort of, you know, going off the cuff for 2 hours plus, as we're finding out he did earlier on this evening? What do you think?
Well, I think this was a great opportunity for him to reach. I saw it reach about 1.3 million at the max viewership just on Twitter, not some of the other streaming platforms that were also carrying it. So you're getting a non-traditional news audience that's
Pretty sure
consuming
it was
this
like
conversation. And I think the fact that it was a
250
conversation
million.
was very entertaining. It's different from a politician, what they typically do. I think people were engaged with it that way. You literally heard Elon Musk and Donald Trump debating everything, obviously the economy and the border and the things you would expect, but they were talking about tunnels, high-speed rail, SpaceX, a lot of just interesting things, and I found it to be quite entertaining.
Well, you know, and I guess opinions are going to vary on this. I mean, I wonder how much of this is going to come back to bite Trump when people piece through what was said. Tim, let me go to you. Let's listen to Donald Trump talk about Elon Musk and his approach to managing his workforce. Let's listen to that.
You're the greatest cutter. I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay. You're all gone. You're all gone.
He calls Elon Musk the greatest cutter. I mean, you and I both know, Tim, that Donald Trump is going to have to win these blue wall states, or at least Pennsylvania for that matter, to win the presidency. He's been trying to appeal to union voters. This doesn't sound like something that's going to help very much at all.
You know, what this sounded like when I first heard it is that these are the conversations that happen at the fancy country clubs with the really rich people, the really rich CEOs. Oh, you're a great cutter. No, you're a great cutter. How many did you lay off this month? How many did I lay off this month? The working class people in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, that's what they think these folks talk about every single day. And it turns out when they're having a conversation, that's exactly what they talked about. And when Barack Obama beat Mitt Romney, it was on a commercial in Ohio that basically talked about Romney putting a guy in a coffin. That's what he felt like when he lost his job because of what Mitt Romney did. So you're going to be hearing a lot more of that, what was just said on that conversation. And you're going to be hearing it in 3 states in particular, not far from where I'm from right now in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah, Mark, I mean, you and I are both old enough to remember the Mitt Romney campaign when Mitt Romney said, I'd like to be able to fire people. That was a huge gaffe during that campaign. That was a much more quaint time in our politics when that kind of a gaffe could really cause trouble for a campaign. For Donald Trump, perhaps it's just a day that ends in Y. But I can't imagine, Mark, being somebody from the comm side of things, that you heard that and thought that was a good idea for Donald Trump to say that.
Well, if I recall that they were talking about cutting government spending and efficiency, Elon Musk was really pressing Donald Trump on needing an efficiency commission to get rid of wasteful spending, wasteful programs with the government. And I think that was what that interaction was entailing. And I think a lot of people out there do think we need to cut the size of government, cut the amount of government spending we have. And so if the clip is played in context,
Mark,
then
I mean, you
think
can hear
it will be easily understood.
But if you hear him talking there, he says clearly to Elon Musk, you know, if you go on strike, you're out of here. And calling him the greatest cutter. I mean, so clearly that's what he was talking about there.
I don't know, man. These CNN people are crazy.